Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. Delighted today that I have got the attention of Paul Burton. He is the Managing Director of TNG. And for those of you that don't know, been flying a little bit under the radar, but they've had some great news out just this week. ASX code, surprisingly enough, is TNG. Welcome to the program, Paul. Great to see you. Lots to cover today.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Yes, I'm glad to be here.
Paul, let's start with those that don't know what TNG is doing. This is a major project up in the Northern Territory, multi-commodity. Let's start off with where you're at, and I think you've hit a number of milestones. So let's give our listeners a little bit of a background on TNG and why right now you're actually pretty excited about all the things that you've ticked off and where you're at with the project.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, look, from a top-down perspective, we've got a very large project in the Northern Territory we've been working on for the last 10 years. It now has just under 3 billion Australian NPV and over 40% IRR. It's a 37-year mine life, and we're producing 3 high-purity products. It's one of the country's largest projects at the moment. Has major project status with the Northern Territory government and a lot of support from the government as well.
Let's talk about the commodities that you're covering. It's vanadium, titanium and iron. Why are those 3 commodities in demand at the moment? What is the demand supply side like? Because I guess from an investor point of view, why should investors be looking at TNG right now? I mean, you said you've been working on it for 10 years. Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is not a long time in the mining industry, but it's a major project. Why are these important and where are you at with it?
Yeah, well, since discovery, we've built the project up to the scale that it's at now, and it's got bigger and bigger the more work that we've done on it. So we're in the final stages now. It's very advanced, final stages for going into development. We're engaged with a major German engineering group called the SMS Group. They've been working with us for about the last 6 years on this project, and they're developing the final process flow sheets and indeed are doing the final design for all the plants that will be on the project itself. So next year we expect to make a final investment decision and have all the funding in place. So it's one of the most advanced projects around. Now, with the commodities, these are commodities that are non-traditional, but in everyday use, both in the steel industry and also into coatings industry and the pigment. So that's why we've got products that are long-term, very long-term growth patterns, good forecasts for their demand, and good pricing, and that's why we get such a strong NPV in this project.
But you're also looking, you've got a technology player. You're not just a resource company, you're also a technology company as well. Let's just allow our listeners a bit of an understanding, because it's almost like it's a green company as well. So let's just unpack that a little bit for our listeners.
Well, as we announced yesterday, yes, certainly we are looking now at having hydrogen involved with our process, which will make us CO2 neutral, which I think is, from a sustainability point perspective and for companies that are taking projects into production, is very important to focus on. And indeed, we're seeing a big movement into the hydrogen use globally. And it's being, I think, being talked about a lot through many governments, indeed our own as well, giving funding towards hydrogen. So we are very much moving towards the green side. But from the technology side as well, we've got our own process called TIVAN that we have developed on this project, which allows us to extract the 3 valuable commodities, the vanadium, the titanium and the iron. And why is that important? Well, traditionally these types of deposits, titanomagnetites, are only used for extracting vanadium. Using the traditional standard process, it's only vanadium that comes out. The titanium and the iron end up on the slag heap. So this is a value add that we've done. We've allowed us to extract the vanadium, the titanium and the iron in very high purities, good grades, and very high value products.
So Paul, in doing so this particular technology is it the first use that whereby there's not going to be as much waste, because people always talk about waste with mining, don't they? So what you're saying is this has not been done before. TNG have got, is it a patented technology, the TIVAN technology?
Indeed it is. We own the trademark and we own the patents, a number of patents in it. And yes, it has a lower footprint, so environmentally it's much more amenable to the way we're looking at putting new plants, new projects into production, and meets all the environmental requirements that are getting tighter and tighter. And not only that, because we're extracting more out of the actual resource, yes, there's less waste. So it works very efficiently. And I think this is going to be the sort of the process of choice for these types of deposits in the future, which is why we have such a large group like the SMS Group, very large German metallurgical group involved with us, because they can see the future demand for this type of process on these products in the future. And that's why they're involved with TNG.
Is SMS got their patent at all, or is that wholly owned by TNG? First part of the question. Second part, could you license that out to other companies and in turn get some income from that as well?
Yeah, most certainly. That's the business plan for TIVAN. Absolutely. Yes, we own it 100%. But the agreement with the SMS is that they would be involved in the construction of any future plants with any people that we do license it out to. And certainly the commercial terms of licenses, we have been approached by some other companies, both in Australia and overseas. And it's certainly something that we can see will be possibly a very, very strong revenue stream for the company, let alone the mining as well. But the royalties and licensing fees from TIVAN could be a company maker in its own right.
So as I said before, this is a resource company, but it's also a technology company as well. So for investors and for those interested at the moment, this is not just about resources, ladies and gentlemen. This is technology and resources. And Paul, I like the fact that you talk about the fact there will be less waste, and in return, you're going to get more income as a result of that. And right now, I guess with a lot of companies saying that they're going to increase their infrastructure spend, that the commodities that you're talking about are in quite high demand for that area. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's look at vanadium, for example, vanadium pentoxide. It's used as a strengthening agent, mainly in the steel industry, but that translates into the construction industry. So where buildings get taller and taller and get built into areas that are prone to earthquakes, or as countries start to develop, they need very, very strong buildings, and they're not going to be prone to collapse or any disasters that we've seen recently. So more vanadium is being used into the steel industry, and as a result, there's less iron involved, less steel involved. So that is a sort of a green move in its own right, having more vanadium into the reinforced bars for.
And is vanadium, Paul, is vanadium, look, excuse my ignorance, do we have any other deposits of this size in Australia, or what are the vanadium deposits in Australia? It's unusual, I think, isn't it?
No, not at all. There's quite a few deposits around. What is unusual and rare is to have these close to existing infrastructure that make them economically exploitable. And that's the advantage of Mount Peake. We're 50 kilometres from what we call the infrastructure corridor in the Northern Territory, which has a road, rail and gas very close by. It's also very shallow. So those are the things that set it apart. But these types of deposits, no, they're not rare at all. But having them economically exploitable is rare.
Right.
And also, because of that, the TIVAN process is the one that you need to use to make these deposits economic, because just extracting vanadium out of these ones that are very isolated, or what we will call stranded, it doesn't make sense just to have all of that infrastructure built just to extract the one product. So having three products gives it a bit more of a potential to be economic. So we do think other companies that have these deposits will move to using the TIVAN process.
Paul, we've spoken in the past about you adding value to these commodities as well. Like TNG is going to be adding more value, and my listeners will know I'm always talking about how Australia should, we should keep our manufacturing onshore, and we should be adding value rather than just shifting the dirt offshore. Let's give an update to our listeners about what TNG is going to be doing with those products.
Well, the mine site's in the middle of the Northern Territory. From there, we extract the magnetite. And the magnetite contains the vanadium, the titanium, and the iron. We're then transferring that up to our TIVAN processing plant, which is going to be located near Darwin. And there is when we extract the vanadium, the titanium, and the iron as three separate commodity streams. We convert those into high purity, so in excess of 98% for the vanadium pentoxide. And the titanium pigment is a very high quality pigment that we use in the coatings industry. And the iron oxide comes out as a 99.9% pure iron oxide, grades over 69% Fe. So these are done within the country rather than exporting the concentrate offshore, which is akin to many other companies doing. We're keeping it all within Australia.
Big tick there, Mr. Burton. Big tick there. Let's get on to something which I think a lot of people do talk about and do wonder. This is a major project, and obviously I'm sure the Northern Territory government are thrilled that it's up there. But I want to talk about the financing because it is a big project. Can you just talk us through how this will be financed and where you're at with that for our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, it's got a big capital expenditure number, and big projects always do. Now, this is going to be a challenge in all markets, but we've mandated one of the largest German resource banks, the KfW IPEX Bank, to cover all the debt. They've been working with us now for the last 18 months. They're very confident about supplying a suitable debt structure to us. The advantage there is that we can use, they're an export credit bank from Germany, so we get very low interest rates, and it's probably going to be one of the best terms for debts that any project could get. KfW very active in the resource area, so we're very happy about that. On the equity side, we're looking at potential strategic partners. We've got our existing shareholder base as well, plus also our offtake partners could come in as partners there, and yeah, look, very confident about this project, even though it is quite a large number. But as a major project, you'd expect that, and it's a long life project, and I think there's going to be good returns for anybody that does get involved.
Well, I think, as you said before, this is a mine life of 37 years, and also KfW Bank, for those of you that don't know, they do a lot of research before they get involved, and they understand the resources industry. So that's a mandate for $600 million US. Was that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Up to $600 million US. We don't think we'll need all of that, but look, they have the ability to put in a very strong debt structure, backed by the Euler Hermes, the German-backed government insurance group that covers the debt structures that they put in place. Plus, also, look, they work very closely with the SMS Group, and both of them give each other confidence in the project. And the SMS Group, just to give another plug for them, if you like, they've been working with many groups around the world for over 200 years. They're a very well-established company, 3 billion euro turnover. And, you know, big companies like that don't get involved with small companies like TNG unless they can see a very good project and a very good process for them to be involved with long term. So they don't like the name associated with projects and processes that don't work. So there's certainly a lot of due diligence that they did before they got involved with us. And I think that gives both KfW confidence, KfW have confidence, SMS have confidence the project's going to get funded. So we move forward.
I think that's a massive tick there in itself, Paul. I just want to remind some of our listeners out there as well, some of the milestones that you've ticked along the way, environmental impact studies and the like. Can you just talk us through those milestones that you ticked and the ones that are going to be going forward? Because I think this is a pivotal moment in TNG's history, and that's why you and I are talking today, because you are, dare I say it, you are about to hit the next milestone, if you like. So let's just go very quickly over where you've got to date.
Look, you're absolutely right that this is a pivotal area for a time for us. I mean, we're a market cap of about 100 million, and we've got an NPV of about 3 billion. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. And sometime in the near future, there's going to be a re-rating of the stock. There's no doubt that has to happen. What are going to be the triggers for that? Well, we think they're coming up soon because we're so advanced in this project. We expect all the final engineering and design to be completed very, very soon. So stepping back down through all our milestones, we've got federal and Northern Territory approval for the environmental study over the mine sites. The mine site's fully permitted. We've got the native title agreement in place, so that's all ready to go. If we had finance and everything was ready, we could start developing the mine tomorrow. So everything's ready there. We've got our own aquifer, we've got all the prep permits in place. With respect to the Northern Territory Darwin location for our process plant, we've submitted the environmental study for that. There's a supplement that's being worked on right at the moment. We're confident that we can address all the matters that are raised there, and we don't believe they have any issues as well. We've completed all the non-process infrastructure. That's all the roads and all the power, etc. That's not associated with specifically the plant itself. That's all ready to go for contractors. So again, subject to finance, and we've got all the offtakes in place as well. So we have offtake agreements, for example, with a huge Swiss-based global group called DKSH for our titanium pigment. They have over 850 offices globally, and they will take our pigment product and take it all to their existing customers. So they're a huge company, 11 billion euro turnover, a US dollar turnover, I beg your pardon. And again, a huge company to be involved with TNG. Also, we've got an offtake agreement with a Korean group, Woojin. Woojin are relatively small, but one of the largest, what they call vanadium converters in Southeast Asia, where they take the vanadium pentoxide and convert it to ferrovanadium, and that's then used in high quality products like Hyundai Steel, for example, and all their car industry. They supply 100% of their requirements. So hopefully soon you'll see some cars going around that basically have some vanadium in it from Mount Peake. 60% of vanadium is going to them. We've got 40% that's going to be going to a group called Gunvor in Singapore. Gunvor is a global trading group, huge group based out of Switzerland as well. We're very close to executing that offtake agreement, which has been noted in our latest ASX announcements as well. And the iron oxide is with our second major shareholder, the Vimson Group, who are a very large private-owned iron ore group. Got their own iron ore mines in Goa and in India. They've been iron mining for the last 50 odd years. Have big clients in Japan and in China. For example, Japan, Itochu is one of the first clients they dealt with. They've been dealing with them for 50 years. So huge relationships with some big companies that we hope to sort of move into as well as we go into production with our project as well. So I'm very happy with our offtake agreements. They've been secured relatively early as well, prior to production, so you can get a feeling for the interest that these big groups do have in our project.
So what news is coming up, Paul? Obviously construction and the facility and getting under mining, because you've got some patient shareholders out there that I know are very keen to see what the next steps are. And you and I will talk again in a couple of months, because I think there is so much coming out in the near future. But for now, two questions. One, what can your current investors start to smile about? We've talked about the offtake. That's, tick done. There's a lot of milestones that you've ticked. What's coming up, number one? And number two, for those that are looking at TNG potentially to invest in, you talked about a re-rate and the fact that right now TNG, I guess, has flown a little bit under the radar. What can people expect in the next couple of months?
Well, we certainly expect to execute the agreement with Gunvor in the near future. So that's certainly one that we can say. The rest of it, we've got what they call the FEED being undertaken by the SMS Groups, the final engineering and design for the whole plant, both the mine site and the Darwin processing plant. That's going to be completed in the next few months. And following that, we should also have our environmental approvals as well. So you can see some big milestones coming up. Ones that the company's never actually been in before. So we expect those to be the final ticks that should re-rate the stock. like all managing directors, I'm saying our stock is very undervalued, but you can see that really from the project perspective as well. We've taken this to a very, very high level of advancement, and it's pretty much getting ready for production is the next stages. So that's exciting. Now, clearly, there's the finance that's got to get over. So all of those, as the finances start to come in, we're talking to people like NAIF, and we're talking to the Northern Territory Government, other areas that can assist with the financing and keeping the project as optimal and as feasible as possible. So any of those agreements, I think, are all very good news flow. So I think strong news flow moving into production is what they can look forward to in the near future.
Well, Paul, I can see there's an underlying excitement about you at the moment, and you've ticked so many boxes. I'm really looking forward to where this goes and all these new business opportunities for TNG. But as I said to our listeners before, this is not just a resource company. You don't forget the TIVAN technology, which puts them into another space of getting an extra stream of revenue over not just the life of mine, but going forward across the globe. So that's pretty exciting as well, Paul. We look forward to speaking to you again. Congratulations on the movement forward and the project. And I will speak to you again on Small Caps in the near future. Thanks for joining us today.
I look forward to that, Kerry. Thank you very much.